Right towards the end of the growing season for us on our CBD plants, we found an insect too, and it was a black caterpillar, and you'll see a picture, one on my finger and another one on a plant, and it was eating the hemp flower. And so we looked in our books, we couldn't figure out what it was. We just couldn't find anything that kind of matched that caterpillar. And so I sent pictures out to a specialist out at Colorado State, and within an hour she came back and she said it's corn earworm. And we were talking about the last week in September now in Wisconsin. When was the last time you heard somebody say, oh, we've got corn earworm problem in the last of September? I don't know what they hosted on to get to the last week in September, but for about 4 or 5 days before we got a frost that kind of knocked them out, we had about 100 plants with corn earworm eating on them. And every place they ate, there was a white mold that formed after they went through and ate. So keep that in mind. And we left ours out in the field a little longer than most people did. But the gal in Colorado, the entomologist in Colorado said that's the biggest problem they have in Colorado is corn earworm attacking the CBD hemp plants. So keep that in mind too, along with the borer and a few others that get it. So I want to go to the point of harvest. If you're doing hemp for CBD, right now, at least in this area, there isn't any equipment or any other way to do it rather than to harvest it by hand and hang it to let it dry and then strip off the hemp flower from it. I think there are people out in Colorado and other places that have other ways of doing it, but at least right now in our volumes, there isn't any equipment to do that. So that's my experience from that. Steve talked about his experience with the grain and how hard it was on the combine. I had a guy tell me last year there were 30 growers in Minnesota in 2017, and when they went to harvest, at least 4 of them had combine fighters in their grain mill. So keep that in mind, if you're going to go grow grain and try and harvest it with a combine. So that's my quick experience from that standpoint. I don't know. Ryan, you want to?
I think I'm pretty well covered with this.
The harvest was a challenge. Where I am chainsawing, so a lot of the plants were about 12 feet tall to 8 foot tall averages on that seed plant. And like I said, they all had sort of varying phenotypes within the strain that we had gotten called Vox. It was planted by seed, so therefore deep tap roots, tall plants, that high by at least 4 to 5 feet wide. So it was virtually impossible to harvest that with even a loppers, so a mechanical force of a chainsaw was needed for quite many of them. The other thing was, just loppers, and for the clones were probably 3 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet tall by about 4 or so feet wide. So much more manageable. So when you're also thinking about planting and what type of varieties, make sure you see pictures of the plants that you would be growing. And of course, growing conditions in different states are a big part of how a plant performs. And that was the big question here in Wisconsin. How would the cherry mom perform here? How would the box? So it's all new ground that we're cultivating, literally. And the size of this box variety was very substantial. And so we had a big barn like this with a hoop ceiling, and we ran 14 ropes, sailors ropes. I'm also a sailor, so we used a lot of those lines for my sailboat. And then, winch those up tight. And so we were hanging these 8 to 12 foot plants high enough on a ladder so we could walk and maneuver underneath during that time. And then, of course, keeping the 2 varieties separate, also because one was organic certified and one was not, so we needed to manage that and make sure that was separated. And then having friends that have moisture meters. So the big trick was then how do we dry this without inducing any molds or mildews. through the dry process, and, you know, not having a professional dry room. It was a hay barn with two, you know, external and ventilator ports, and then on the sides. And so we brought in 8 different fans. We had a ceiling fan, so we had vertical airflow as well as horizontal airflow, and keeping that moisture. And obviously throughout the rainy season, your humidity, you know, on a weekly basis was hitting 80–90%, and then maybe the next week it was in the 40s. So, you know, the timing of a fall harvest is quite poignant for lower humidity, but we did have a wetter fall as well. So, you know, between 10 to 12% dry is good. You could also tell when you start to shuck the plant matter from the stalk and branches that it easily comes off. If they were sticky at all, then you knew that your humidity was too high. And then being able to store it. I had bought some large poly-woven breathable seed bags that were like 3 by 3 by 4 foot high bags. And for I think temporary storage before getting it to the processor worked well. We're considering, and we did buy a vacuum sealer, so being able to vacuum seal the plants at the proper moisture level so you can ship that off to the appropriate person. So the drying, you know, the light at the end of the tunnel was close, all this excitement of harvest, but then getting through the dry process, you know, make sure you think that through and how you're going to do it, store it before processing. I guess we'll get to processing, you know, what are we going to talk about processing? But, you know, it's a new thing too for processing, so not everybody is up and running. And so we're sitting on our crop right now, this is 3 months after harvest, waiting to find the right processor, and we're still working on the agreements and contracts for that. So a lot of these things, when you fill out your application, you have to put a processor down ideally, you know, and the varieties of plants that you're getting. So certainly start determining where you'll need to get that process. Yep.
I have 3 questions for you. On the varieties that you used, were any harder to harvest than others? That's like the co-op stage, that's large.
Yeah, the box was certainly harder, but that was a seed, you know, that was, you know, a non-feminized seed,
Right.
a little bit more unstable, so that was the monster. You know, 4-inch diameter stalks we were cutting through. And the other one was called H1. And that was
Sorry, could you speak up?
the H1, and was it the clone? And then the box.
And then the 2 other questions are related. How far can you ship the flour before it becomes uneconomical? And 2, with the advent of the hemp, can you ship the flour across state lines?
In regards to shipping across state lines, so DEA has said that we have state of Wisconsin has no issue with that. Some states do have regulations on shipping into their state, so you have to know what those are. And I think North Dakota is one that has, they want some MOU agreements with the state that it's coming from. Other states that are in the program, most of them I don't think have a problem with that. So in terms of legally shipping, you should be able to ship from one hemp state to another hemp state, from one licensed grower processor to another licensed grower processor. And that's not saying that that's perfect or that works 100%. You want to make sure you have all your paperwork in doing that for the legality of it.
Hey, Andy, can I back you up just a little bit? How many days or weeks did you have to hang it to dry, from beginning to end?
The question was, how long did it take to dry from beginning to end? We harvested on roughly September 15th, and it would have been good to go by the end of October, early November, if all went well. But, you know, then you get rain, and the humidity goes up, so it's really sensitive to that. So I would think, you know, an ideal would be to, once you get your right moisture, then get it stripped and packaged into, and being sent to where you wanna go. We do have some that's still hanging in the barn, and I don't know about what you guys think, but it seems like that might be the safest place to have it, is just hanging, until you're ready to roll and strip it, but I'm open to suggestions on that.
It's a hygroscopic plant, meaning in the morning, it's soaking wet, in the afternoon, it's pretty dry. You got the relative humidity above 75%, the stuff's gonna be spongy wet, it just sucks up the water. Unless you have a perfectly controlled environment with dehumidifiers. We got done harvesting, and it rained and stayed above 75% relative humidity, like 80% of the time for a month. So it hung as long as it needed to. And as far as moisture meters and things, we tried several different moisture meters and testers, and it's a crapshoot. I don't believe any of them. Right, this probe does this probe does that, and they didn't. You couldn't tell. The only way to do it was basically get a mass, wait, dry it out, weigh the difference, do your percentage, okay, that's about how much moisture I have. That worked. Right, really, once it got down to it, the branches would snap, shuck it off, done. Next, that's how we pretty much did it. The branches were brittle, it was fine. If you did it in the morning, those same branches that were cracking the night before are now spongy. So it's not a real science to it. I think the perfect world when it comes to pharmaceutical type stuff, you're not gonna be able to do it like that. You're gonna want it a particular way, it's gonna go a specific time, it's gonna have this kind of drying, and all it's gonna be involved. At this point, if you're hanging it in the barn, you're gonna deal with Mother Nature, Wisconsin, and it ain't easy. And the limiting factor is gonna be your drying space. You're gonna grow a couple acres of hemp, you better have a couple barns to put it in to dry it. Otherwise, you're screwed. I know acreages and acreages that had piles of hemp rotting because they couldn't get it dry. There's a couple of questions here. Is you first?
Have you noticed that when you store your hemp in those bags, that the CBD content degrades into CBN over time, or?
I haven't tested it, but I've heard tell you lose 1% per month stored. That's what I've heard. Question? I'm sorry. To repeat the question, do you lose CBD value over time? I've heard you lose 1% per month storage. Next.
Yeah, I was told that the type of processing equipment that can process high moisture plants without the dryer, it just makes more sense for our high moisture fall climate. Can you speak to the different type of processing that would not require you to dry down the top?
That's a really good question. Because the limiting factor is right now. Oh, I'm sorry. Excellent. Repeat the question. Are there other ways to take care of this processing without having to dry it? And people are scrambling to do it. There's a lot of claims out there. I've seen presses, and there are people that will extract it right out of the field with ethanol. And there's multiple steps into that. Nothing's been perfected or standardized on yet, and it seems to be regionally being adopted. So there are methods to do it. If I was to try it, I'd try it on an acre or two, maybe. Right? But these people are dealing with hundreds of acres at a time, and they have to do it that way because you can't hang dry hundreds of acres of crop. You just can't. So they're baling it up, they're freezing it, they're mashing it, they're throwing it in freezers, and doing fresh frozen type stuff. There's multiple methods to do it. Nothing's really been employed here yet that anybody's talking about. Although I hear some whispers that folks are doing it, not telling anybody. Anybody in here? He's doing it, see?
What percentage of CBD did you have?
We ended up on 2 plants. One variety was about 8.77 total. The CBDA was 9 something, and then the other one was 14 something.
What was the other one?
The trays gave us 14.9.
What do you want?
The most you can get. What you want is a ratio between your CBD and THC that never changes. You got that 25 to 30% ratio, so that ratio never changes in the life of the plant. So you want as much as you can get without going hot. There's no real science to it unless you're in a laboratory or a greenhouse. Honestly, my goal is to pick a very safe crop because I don't want to burn the damn stuff. I don't want to bury it. I want to grow something I can at least get a return on. So I didn't add a lot of fertility. I didn't want the Primo Ferrari to grow. I wanted me a nice Volkswagen or a good Chevy. Get that sucker down the road so I can get it taken care of. Right? I want to get that. So I'm going to look for a 10 to 12%. I'm going to have almost no worries with the ratios, 30 to 1, 25 to 1 ratio of CBD to THC. This is where it belongs. That crop will probably be okay unless I overfeed it or it's too stressed. Yes. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Was it profitable for you?
What
You
is-
break even this year?
These are good questions. I got a bird in my saddle when it comes to money in CBD right now, all right? And I'm not going to talk about it too much in public. But my quick estimates on our 200 plants, we spend about $5,400 on plants, we're probably gonna make 10,000 or so. Those are real rough numbers and it's not done yet, right? But for my 200 plants, with the tilling and the plants, I get $2,700 in each one of them, that's 54. And depending on the CBD and the quality and the whole bit, it's gonna be in that general range. So I'm gonna just about double on my 400 plants, Janet and I, something in that range. Again, that's just, yeah, I think it's, most of that stuff is all in Pacific, but not all, right? Yeah.
Oh, well, fun fact, company Valley Bio out of Ontario, California is combining the industrial hemp. And they're using a special outfit combiners, different skid plate, no chains, belts, and then there's guards, the deflector guards in the combine itself. So they're doing thousands of acres, and then they're drying it via silo. So they're rotating the silo, so they're actually drying the grain, not the plant. And they're putting the plant back onto the ground through a typical combine process. They're successfully doing Valley Bio out of Ontario. You can easily look them up. They have YouTubes and that kind of thing. If you're interested.
For a CBD crop?
It's a hemp, industrial hemp.
Just industrial, yeah. There are many methods, Canada's been doing it for a couple of decades now, and there are methods to get it done. The infrastructure for either industrial hemp fibers and grains really isn't here, and the CBD thing is just wide open. And there's lots of room for growth, so thank you.
Steve, if I can add too, I think you had this experience. If you're combining grain hemp, they want that at about 9% moisture. When you combine it, no matter how good your combine is, you're getting a lot of green matter in that grain. And if you leave it set overnight, even in a wagon, it's gonna start to get hot and mold up on you.
That grain was a program. I was up to midnight many days in a row trying to get the stuff out of it to keep it from getting hot out. How are we on time? We're approaching a good question period.
We need to move on.
Yeah. Please accept my apologies, but I'll answer any questions I can.
You know, I'll just add something really quick. If any of you have ever cut and baled hay, you know what the hay feels like when it's ready to bale? That's just, the hemp is the same way. When it's dry and crispy, it's ready to go, and if it gets damp out, you better wait till it gets sunny again. That's about it.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to the panel. I'm gonna let each person up here kind of have a little bit to say about just their overall experience and would they do it again, if there's any specific things that they would change. But before we do that, I want to give Melody a chance to talk first, just about DACAP rules and regulations. Keep in